This and more, streaming on the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Hello and a very good morning to all News 9 viewers. I'm Neha Bhan. Let's take a look at some of the top national and international stories of this hour. We begin with what's been happening on the COP28 front. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Dubai, where he is scheduled to participate in the COP28 meeting in Dubai. Right on your screens, visuals of the same Prime Minister arriving in Dubai to attend the all-important COP28 meeting. In addition to addressing COP28, he'll also engage in 3 high-level side events, 2 of them co-hosted by India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a rousing welcome as he arrived in Dubai to attend the COP28 meeting. Now, the Prime Minister was welcomed by an enthusiastic set of Indians in Dubai. Take a look.
संबोधन भी देंगे। अब से कुछ देर पहले प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी यहां पहुंचे हैं दुबई, जहां पे उनका स्वागत किया गया दुबई एयरपोर्ट पर।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi there welcomed by enthusiastic Indians who were quite elated to see the Prime Minister in Dubai. The first event, co-hosted by India and the UAE, focuses on the Green Credit Program initiated by the Ministry of Environment in October. Amid chants of Modi, 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 Prime Minister right there meeting the enthusiastic set of Indians who sang Sare Jahan Se Acha as well as chanted Bharat Mata Ki Jai, Vande Matram and Modi, Modi as the Prime Minister reached Dubai to attend the World Climate Action Summit of the COP28 scheduled for today. The members also presented a cultural dance and greeted him. The first event there, as I mentioned, co-hosted by India and the UAE, focuses on the Green Credit Program initiated by the Ministry of Environment in October. Now, another side event, co-hosted by India and Sweden, will mark the launch of LEAD 2.0, LEAD IT 2.0, a leadership group for energy transition. This collaborative effort, initiated in 2019, aims to accelerate the industry transition to net zero emissions by fostering collaboration between the public and private sectors. The Prime Minister will also participate in a high-level meeting titled Transforming Climate Finance. It's an event. The COP28 Climate Summit commenced on Thursday, and right on your screens is the Prime Minister's Twitter account. In fact, X, formerly Twitter, their Prime Minister writing, landed in Dubai to take part in the COP28 summit. looking forward to the proceedings of the summit, which are aimed at creating a better planet. Now, the summit emphasizes the need for nations to swiftly reduce emissions and phase out fossil fuels. Prime Minister Modi is expected to return to India later on Friday evening, as stated by Foreign Secretary Vijay Kavatra during a Thursday briefing. Right on your screens is the venue where the COP summit meeting will take place, where the all-important COP summit will take place, where in fact the summit emphasizes the need for nations to swiftly reduce emissions and phase out fossil fuels. Prime Minister is also expected to hold bilateral meetings with some of the leaders participating in the summit. They may include Israeli President Isaac Herzog, as well as UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the newly elected Maldivian President. Well, now at COP28 in Dubai, nearly 200 nations converge, each with its unique agenda. Take a look at the key players and their respective objectives.
Each country has its own agenda for the nearly 200 nations gathering at COP28 in Dubai. And finding consensus is a challenge, as UN climate negotiations need unanimous support to pass. Here are some of the climate summit's main players and what they're looking for. China, the world leader in both clean and dirty energy. It's responsible for 30% of annual global emissions, making it the world's biggest greenhouse gas emitter. But it also has more renewable energy capacity than anywhere else. China has been feeling the impacts of climate change through heat waves, floods, and extreme drought. Despite having the world's second largest economy after the US, it sees itself as a developing nation in climate talks and argues wealthy, developed nations like the US should move first and fastest in policy and finance. It's part of the bloc of basic countries alongside South Africa, Brazil, and India, who argue the same. The United States is the world's second largest emitter. It comes to COP28 a year into rolling out a $369 billion plus subsidy package for electric vehicles and other green products. Its Inflation Reduction Act is expected to triple the country's clean energy capacity by 2030. But U.S. delegates will face pressure at COP28 after Washington pledged no new climate cash to the United Nations this year. It supports a COP28 deal to phase out CO2-emitting fossil fuel use, despite being the world's biggest oil and gas producer. The 27-country European Union is among the most ambitious. The bloc, along with the U.S., is pushing to triple renewable capacity. It also aims to end new coal-fueled power plants, phase out fossil fuels, and power electricity grids with renewable sources in the 2030s. African countries are pushing for climate finance to speed up green energy projects. But not everyone's on the same page. Some, like Kenya, Ethiopia, and Senegal, have backed calls for phasing out fossil fuel production. Others, like Mozambique, want to develop their reserve of gas to capitalize off European gas demands. But they do agree that any deal on phasing out fossil fuels must allow poor nations to develop reserves in the short term to alleviate energy poverty.
At the UN Climate Summit, a significant achievement as delegates agreed on establishing a fund to aid vulnerable nations in managing the expenses of climate-induced disasters. The agreement, a result of extensive negotiations preceding COP28's opening ceremony in Dubai, involves contributions totaling just over $300 million, including a substantial pledge of $100 million from the United Arab Emirates. Listen in.
Hearing no objections, it is so decided.
The UN Climate Summit clinched an early victory on Thursday, with delegates adopting a new fund to help vulnerable nations cope with the cost of climate-driven disasters. The deal was adopted following the COP28 opening ceremony in Dubai and already follows many months of negotiations. But some groups were cautious, noting there were still unresolved issues, including how the fund would be financed in the future. The United Arab Emirates will contribute $100 million to the pot, along with other countries contributing a total of just over $300 million. Germany pledged $100 million and the United States $17.5 million, with hopes the amount would build to a substantial sum. The early breakthrough on the damage fund, which poorer nations have demanded for years, could help grease the wheels for further compromises. Earlier in the day, COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber, who is also the CEO of the UAE's national oil company, opened the summit urging countries and fossil fuel companies to work together to meet global climate goals. Al Jaber aimed to strike a conciliatory tone following months of criticism over his appointment as the head of COP28.
Let history reflect the fact that this is the presidency that made a bold choice to proactively engage with oil and gas companies. We had many hard discussions. Let me tell you, that wasn't easy. But today, many of these companies are committing to zero methane emissions by 2030 for the first time. And now, many national oil companies have adopted net zero 2050 targets for the first time. And I'm grateful that they have stepped up to join this game-changing journey. But I must say, it is not enough. And I know that they can do much more.
Over the next 2 weeks, governments will also debate whether to agree, for the first time, to phase out the use of CO2-emitting coal, oil and gas globally, the main source of emissions. Also on the agenda is what's known as the global stocktake. This is when countries assess their progress in meeting global climate goals, the main one being the Paris Agreement goal of limiting global warming to well below 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 2 degrees Celsius.
Moving on now, one terrorist was killed after an encounter broke out in New Colony area of Arihal village in Pulwama district of Jammu and Kashmir. According to officials, 2 terrorists were suspected to be trapped in the joint operation involving the police, 44 Rashtra Rifles and the CRPF. The ongoing exchange of gunfire indicates that the operation is still underway. The police stated, and I quote, "In the ongoing encounter, 1 terrorist has been neutralized. The search operation is still ongoing and further details shall follow." Unquote. The security forces initiated a cordon and search operation based on intelligence regarding the presence of terrorists in the area earlier this evening. After the abrogation of Article 370, terrorism has taken a serious hit, and these incidents do keep coming to light, but not so frequently as one got to witness before the 5th of August 2019. In the latest, what we're getting is that 1 terrorist has been neutralized by the security forces in an encounter that broke out in New Colony area of Arihal village in Pulwama district. The encounter is currently underway, is what we're learning. The security forces acted based on specific intelligence inputs. Let's get you the latest from war zone Israel, where Israel and Hamas have decided to extend the truce by one more day.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
Now, the war between Israel and Hamas has entered its 56th day. Let's get you the latest update from the war front. Now, according to a report, Israel and Hamas have agreed to another last-minute deal extending the truce for 8th day. 8 more Israeli hostages freed from Gaza on Thursday. Israeli authorities say they released 30 Palestinian prisoners in return. Talks continue about extending the pause due to end today. U.S. Secretary of State has met Israeli and Palestinian leaders. At least 4 killed in West Jerusalem bus station shooting. Houthis to resume military operations against Israel if the latter continues war on Gaza. Talking about the death toll, over 14,800 people, including more than 6,000 children, have been killed in the Gaza operation. A total of 8 Israeli hostages were released by Hamas on Thursday as part of a temporary ceasefire deal. Israel freed 30 Palestinian prisoners in the early hours of Friday under the truce deal in return. International pressure has mounted for the truce to continue for as long as possible. With the current truce expiring today, following a 7-day pause, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged an extension after meeting with leaders in Israel and the occupied West Bank. And in the latest, what we're learning is that the war, this is according to reports that Israel and Hamas have agreed to another last-minute deal, extending for the 8th day. Remember, it was the 24th of November. That was the first time when both the sides decided to call for a truce for 4 days. And since then, the truce has been extending. Now, earlier on Wednesday, Israel and Hamas agreed to extend a temporary truce by another day, minutes before it was set to expire. Qatar has been mediating between the two sides. The truce was set to expire Friday morning. Since the truce agreement on 24th of November, 110 hostages have been released, including 80 Israelis. The majority of the 30 non-Israeli hostages released were from Thailand, were freed under a separate agreement. Meanwhile, Israel has released 20 Palestinian prisoners, 240, Palestinian prisoners in exchange. Israel and Hamas are reportedly extending the truce for an 8th day as per the Wall Street Journal, citing Egyptian officials. Despite no official announcement from either side or from Egypt, Qatar and the US, negotiations have led to an understanding of an extension. The additional day is expected to facilitate the release of another 10 Israeli hostages. This is also as per reports. Family members of the hostages eagerly rushed to hospitals on Thursday to reunite with loved ones who had been held captive by Hamas for 53 days. Among the released hostages was 18-year-old Italy Ragev, who joyfully reunited with his sister Mia. The hostages, numbering 16 in total, were handed over to Israeli officials on the second day of an extended truce in the Gaza war. The Red Cross and other authorities confirmed the release and negotiation have led to an extension of the truce. In addition to Israeli citizens, 2 Russians and 4 Thais were also released outside the agreement's framework. The total number of people seized by Hamas in the October 7 rampage into southern Israel was around 240. As part of a Qatari-mediated deal, 30 Palestinians, including 16 minors and 14 women, were released in exchange on Wednesday. The UN Commission investigating war crimes in the Israel-Hamas conflict will focus on sexual violence by Hamas during the October 7 attacks on Israel. Navi Pillai, the Commission's chair, plans to launch an appeal for evidence and will pass it on to the International Criminal Court. Israel's lack of cooperation poses a challenge with the country, citing an alleged anti-Israel bias. Despite this, Pillai had collaborated with ICC prosecutors and condemned Israel's response to the October 7 attacks. The Commission also prioritizes investigating the killing of reporters during the conflict, including Reuters journalist Issam Abdallah.
Very impressed with the deputy prosecutor's emphasis on how seriously she wishes to investigate the incidents of sexual violence, the complaints coming from Israel. Well, self-defense doesn't apply here because Gaza is not a state. I agree, it's absolutely shocking the numbers of people that have been killed and continue to face the risk of starvation, killings, and so on, because the bombings and attacks have not stopped.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met Israel President Isaac Herzog on Thursday to discuss the ongoing truce between Israel and Hamas, among other developments. Blinken said a temporary truce between Israel and Hamas had produced results and the United States hoped it would continue. Blinken said Washington was focused on helping to secure freedom for hostages taken to Gaza during an October 7 attack. Herzog informed Blinken that about 150 hostages remain in Gaza. Now their meeting in Tel Aviv took place on a morning when 2 Palestinian attackers opened fire at a bus stop during rush hour at the entrance of Jerusalem, killing at least 3 people and wounding 8 others. Both Blinken and Herzog condemned the attack.
Welcome. Secretary and I had an opportunity to begin the discussion, and there are many issues that we want to talk about. So I want to express our appreciation for your support from the beginning, Presidents, your personally, your delegation, and the war aims of eliminating Hamas and securing the release of our hostages. You've been very, very helpful. We appreciate it deeply. We'd like to talk to you about the next phase. So that's a summary of what we'd like to talk about and began talking about.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. This is my 4th visit to Israel since October 7th. And as you said, we're reminded yet again by the events in Jerusalem today of the threat from terrorism that Israel and Israelis face every single day. And like you, my heart goes out to the victims of this attack. I believe 1 person lost life, maybe as many as 3. We're thinking of them, we're thinking of their families, their loved ones, and we mourn their loss just as we mourn the loss of any innocent life. From day one, we have been focused relentlessly on trying to secure the release of hostages from Gaza and from Hamas. And we have seen over the last week the very positive development of hostages coming home, being reunited with their families, and that should continue today.
Israel again. Unfortunately, as we are meeting now, there are casualties in a serious terror attack in the entrance to Jerusalem, our capital. 2 terrorists have attacked innocent civilians waiting to be picked up to go on their day's work. and we have casualties, we have loss of life, and I would like to express my heartfelt condolences to the families, and of course to pray for the swift recovery of the wounded. This is another example of the situation we're in, the endless war that we are fighting against terror organizations, especially Hamas, in these very complicated and challenging times. I thank you for coming here. As always, you've been expressing the support of the United States, the President, administration, and I must say on behalf of the American people at large, so I thank you very much. We are working and praying and demanding the immediate release of all the hostages, and I thank the United States of America for the immense work it is devoting to the release of the hostages. There are still around 150 hostages who are there in Hamas hands in Gaza.
As you just saw, Blinken also met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday in Jerusalem. Now, the U.S. Secretary of State visited Jerusalem for the third time since the war began. Blinken expressed ongoing efforts to extend the truce, while Netanyahu mentioned discussions on the next phase. A last-minute agreement between Israel and Hamas extending the ceasefire for 8th day was also brought into effect. Now, this was the meeting that took place yesterday. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken meeting the Israeli President as well as the Prime Minister. Drone footage captures the aftermath of Israeli airstrikes on mosques in Khan Yunis, revealing the extensive damage caused during the 7-week offensive. Take a look. This is the drone footage that captures the aftermath of the Israeli airstrikes in Khan Yunis. It was on the 7th of October when Hamas launched a deadly attack against southern Israel, killing about 1,400 Israelis and taking about 240 people as hostages. Israel vowed to retaliate and since then has been bombarding Gaza. Now, these are the visuals from Khan Yunis. This is a drone footage which has revealed the extensive damage caused during the 7-week offensive in Israel's bombardment of the territory, initiated in a response to Hamas attacks on Israel on the 7th of October. Both sides have decided for a truce since the 24th of November. Today, in the last minute, both the sides decided to extend the truce for one more day. Moving on now, the West's double standards on terror stands exposed again. The US had accused India of allegedly plotting to kill Khalistani terrorist Gurpant Singh Panun. According to a charge sheet filed by the US Department of Justice, a man named Nikhil Gupta worked with an unnamed Indian official to set up a meeting with an undercover agent tasked with eliminating Panun on US soil. Now, the indictment reveals that the plot to assassinate Panun was orchestrated by an employee of an Indian government agency who then recruited Nikhil Gupta in May to carry out the assassination. It said Gupta contacted an individual he believed to be a criminal associate to help find a hitman to carry out the killing, but the individual actually was a confidential source working with the DEA. It is alleged that a payment of $1 lakh was to be made for the job. Throughout its history, the United States has used its military and covert operations to overthrow or prop up foreign governments in the name of preserving U.S. strategic and business interests. Recently, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby emphasized the gravity of allegations against an Indian government official accused of orchestrating an unsuccessful plot to assassinate Panun. Kirby said that the U.S. takes these allegations quite seriously.
India remains a strategic partner, and we're going to continue to work to improve and strengthen that strategic partnership with India. At the same time, we take this very seriously. These allegations and this investigation, take it very seriously. And we're glad to see that the Indians are too, by announcing their own efforts to investigate this. And we've been clear that we want to see anybody held, that's responsible for these alleged crimes to be held properly accountable.
Now, the MEA also says that it takes the charges seriously and has set up a high-level probe panel to examine the issue. Listen in.
On the issue of Canada, insofar as Canada is concerned, we have said that they have consistently given space to anti-India extremists and violence, and that is actually the heart of the issue. Our diplomatic representatives in Canada have borne the brunt of this. So we expect the government of Canada to live up to its obligations under the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. We have also seen interference by Canadian diplomats in our internal affairs. We've said this from this podium, and that is obviously unacceptable.
Now, at an event in Austin, Texas, Tesla CEO Elon Musk unveiled the highly anticipated Cybertruck and handed over the initial batch of new electric pickups to customers. Despite initial expectations, the entry-level model begins at approximately $61,000, significantly higher than Musk's 2019 projected price. Musk highlighted the Cybertruck's features, including a 6-foot-long, 4-foot-wide truck bed, a payload capacity of 2,500 pounds, a towing capacity of 11,000 pounds, and a notable 17-inch ground clearance.
Finally, the future will look like the future.
On a darkened stage in Austin, Texas, Tesla CEO Elon Musk introduced the long-delayed Cybertruck and delivered the first new electric pickups to customers. The low-cost model starts at roughly $61,000, more than 50% higher than the price Musk had touted in 2019. He said the Cybertruck has a 6-foot-long, 4-foot-wide truck bed, 2,500 pounds in payload capacity, 11,000 pounds towing capacity, and a 17-inch ground clearance.
It's basically an incredibly useful truck. It's not just some grandstanding showpiece like me.
The event comes weeks after he tempered investor expectations, citing problems in ramping production of what he called a radical product. Cybertruck, Tesla's first new model in nearly 4 years, is critical to its reputation as a maker of innovative vehicles. At a time when the company is battling softening electric vehicle demand and rising competition, Cybertruck is also key for generating sales, though not to the extent of the company's high-volume Models 3 and Y. According to Tesla's website, the low-cost truck won't be available until 2025, while higher-priced models will debut next year. Experts say Cybertruck's new body material and unconventional futuristic styling add complexity and costs to production and threaten to alienate traditional pickup buyers who focus on utility. Tesla tried to display the usefulness of the new vehicle in a video it ran, showing the Cybertruck pulling a 40,000-pound sled farther than trucks from Ford and Rivian. It has drawn more than 1 million reservation holders who have put down $100 as deposits.
In an interview with the New York Times, Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen emphasized that China's leadership is currently grappling with significant internal challenges, making the prospect of a Taiwan invasion less likely. Despite China's heightened military pressure on Taiwan over the past 4 years, Tsai pointed out that China has numerous pressing issues to address.
We hope when planted.
The transcript of the interview published by Tsai's office revealed her call for talks with China, which has consistently rejected such proposals, viewing Tsai and the Democratic Progressive Party as separatists. Tsai reiterated that Taiwan's future should be determined by its people, emphasizing the democratic principle. As Taiwan is amid campaign for presidential and parliamentary Election scheduled for the 13th of January, Tsai noted concerns about China attempting to interfere in the elections. However, she expressed confidence in the resilience of Taiwan's democratic process, stating that people are well informed to make decisions about their leadership. Addressing China's increased attacks on DPP's Lai Ching-te, the frontrunner for Taiwan's next president, according to polls, Tsai acknowledged the interference attempts but suggested that they may not significantly impact the democratic electoral process. Starting the 1st of December, citizens of China and India can enjoy visa-free entry to Malaysia for up to 30 days, as announced by Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim at the People's Justice Party Congress. Malaysia's Home Affairs Minister confirmed the visa exemptions until 31st of December 2024. China and India rank as Malaysia's 4th and 5th largest tourist markets. Recent government data reports that Malaysia welcomed 9.16 million tourists between January and June, with 283,885 from India. In a move similar to Malaysia, Thailand, a neighboring country heavily reliant on tourism, has also waived visa requirements for Chinese and Indian nationals. Additionally, Sri Lanka's cabinet approved free visas for individuals from India, China, Russia, Malaysia, Japan, Indonesia and Thailand as a pilot project until the 31st of March 2024. Elon Musk refuses reconciliation with advertisers who left X, formerly Twitter, over anti-Semitic content, bluntly bashing them. Disney chief Bob Iger signaled out among those who pulled ads. Musk, facing backlash, shows no deterrence, stating X's fate rests with advertisers' boycott. Here's a full report.
Elon Musk isn't about to make up with advertisers. In a fiery interview Wednesday at a New York Times event, he cursed at firms who quit social network X over anti-Semitic content. He told such brands to go F themselves. And he appeared to single out Disney chief Bob Iger as one target. The company was among those to pull all ads on X after Musk posted in support of a user who repeated an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Speaking earlier at the same event, Iger said that association with X was not a positive one for us. Other firms, including Warner Bros. Discovery and Comcast, have also withdrawn marketing. On Wednesday, Musk bristled at suggestions that he was anti-Semitic, but did offer a note of contrition. He described his post as the worst he had made in a long history of foolish tweets. But one marketing consultant said his new tirade would be the closing chapter for brands doing business with X. Musk does not appear deterred. He says that if X fails because of an advertiser boycott, then so be it. Let the chips fall where they may, he said Wednesday. X is, however, suing the Media Matters organization, which has claimed that ads on the social network are appearing next to content promoting Nazism.
Now, Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, has taken action to shut down 5 China-based influence campaigns on its platforms this year. These campaigns aim to exploit divisions within US politics as several significant elections approach worldwide, including the upcoming US presidential race. Meta anticipates the possibility of new campaigns aiming to manipulate genuine political discourse in order to stoke tensions in the countries they target. Meta has taken down 5 Chinese networks of fake accounts in 2023, the most of any country this year. That's a significant increase from 2019, when Meta first removed a campaign based in China. That's Meta's crackdown on the Chinese accounts. Survivors fleeing violence in Sudan's wet Darfur recounted harrowing experiences of rape by armed fighters disguised in RSF military attire or the traditional robes and the turbans worn by Arab militiamen. Take a look.
A 19-year-old abducted and raped by 4 men over 3 days. A 28-year-old women's rights activist seized from her doorstep and raped while being held for hours in an abandoned house. A 24-year-old raped by armed men in her home just a few feet from her mother.
They said, "We'll kill her if you don't give yourself to us." I sacrificed myself and said, "Whatever you want to do to me instead of killing my mother."
These are among 11 young women interviewed by Reuters who say they were sexually assaulted amid a war in Sudan by members of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces and allied Arab militiamen. They are all from the non-Arab Masalit ethnic group, which has been targeted in Sudan's West Darfur by the Arab-dominated RSF and its allies. At a refugee camp in neighbouring Chad, this 27-year-old medical assistant said she had been sheltering at a displacement camp in the West Darfur city El Geneina when men in RSF uniforms arrived and shot several Masalit men. They recognised her as the wife of a Masalit community activist and asked his whereabouts. She told them she didn't know.
One beat me while I was lying on the floor. They assaulted me and I kept screaming. While I was screaming, they stuffed a scarf in my mouth so I couldn't scream. After that, one held my arms. There were about 5 of them. Some were beating me. 3 were assaulting me. After the 3, I lost consciousness. I didn't know where I was, and I couldn't see or hear.
El Geneina was at the centre of a surge in ethnically targeted violence from late April, just after Sudan's conflict began, to mid-June. Survivors described civilians being slaughtered, picked off by snipers, mowed down by automatic weapons, and burned alive in their homes. In early November, the RSF and its allies waged another wave of attacks in the city. The women in this report were interviewed in the Chadian border town Ardre in July and August. Reuters was unable to independently corroborate all the details of their accounts, but in many instances family members and friends confirmed elements of their stories. All 11 said the men who attacked them wore either RSF military uniforms or the robes and turbans commonly worn by Arab militiamen.
He threatened me with a weapon and told me, "Are you going to take off your clothes or not?"
This 25-year-old says she told her assailants she would rather die. Instead, they said, they would kill her brothers.
At that point, I surrendered.
Nearly all of the women interviewed said they were raped by multiple men, and all said it was at gunpoint. 6 said their attackers mentioned their Masalit identity, or used ethnic slurs for the Masalit and other darker-skinned non-Arabs. Emir Massa Asil, a tribal leader in El Geneina, has dismissed the rape allegations as empty lies. He leads one of the largest Arab tribes in West Darfur, a group from which many RSF leaders hail. Arab tribal traditions prohibit sexual assault and bar marrying Masalit. In a phone interview, Asil said if he couldn't bring himself to marry a Masalit woman, why would I take her by force? He also blamed the Masalit for starting the conflict. The RSF didn't respond to detailed questions for this report. It has said of the broader conflict in Sudan that it opposes any abuses against civilians. Speaking about the Darfur region, the paramilitary group's deputy head, Abdul Rahim Dagalo, said this in November.
The RSF will not provide support to perpetrators, but will respond swiftly and resolutely. We assure our firm readiness to collaborate with the Investigations Committee to present any individuals involved in violations to fair and just sentences.
The sexual assault reports come amid war in Sudan between the army and the RSF. More than 10,000 people have been killed and 6 million displaced. The United Nations has said that across Sudan it has received credible reports of conflict-linked sexual violence involving more than 100 victims. But at the camp on Chad's border, survivors are having to live with the physical and emotional scars of their ordeal. This woman says she was taken to a room and raped by 2 men. She tries to be patient, she says, and not show her emotions, so people won't look at her as a victim and judge her behind her back. But under the surface, she says, she is very depressed. Sometimes, she adds, I feel like my life has ended.